Hello class and welcome to this Kirby's Adventure walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and Kirby's Adventure is one of the most original and just charming, enjoyable, can't say enough good things about this game for the NES from HAL Laboratory. In terms of difficulty, kind of right there in the middle. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. This equates to throwing your controller across the room, and the occasional fit of rage, probably when you lost that really great power-up that at the worst possible time. There are so many power-ups which we will see over the course of this walkthrough, and I kind of like this intro right off the bat as they're kind of doing the controls for us. Might as well put this up right now, right? We usually wait till after the intro, but as they're explaining, and we're showing right here, you can inhale enemies with B. That's the basis of a lot of the gameplay in this game. You can suck in an enemy, and some of them have special abilities. So if you push down once you have an enemy in your belly, you can take on their special ability. You can drop it again with select if you want, but there are a lot of different ones to cover, which we'll show throughout the course of this game, as I mentioned. We can also just hold up to fly. Not a lot of games have that ability. That actually makes this game a lot easier because you can bypass a lot of the danger more often than not simply by flying over it. But you can, once you have an enemy in your belly before you swallow them, you can just hit B again to launch them out as a projectile. Useful on a lot of the bosses. Gary's going to talk about that. He's got boss beaters for the many, many bosses here in Kirby's Adventure. But yeah, each special ability sort of has its own specific moveset and everything like that, which we'll cover a little bit with each one. Again, there's a lot of abilities. There's about 20 all total. Most of them are take or leave them. There's a few which stand out in particular. I'm partial to the sword myself. The hammer's very good. The UFO, obviously. We'll cover all these. Some of these abilities you need specifically to access hidden areas if you want to get the 100% completion version of playing through this game, which we are going to cover. You'll be able to get every single secret. We're going to show everything you need to know to 100% this game. Little context: one day the peaceful world of Dreamland was shattered by a mysterious crisis. There's a star rod. Kirby was investigating and found the naughty king DDD. I think they pronounce it da-da-da in Japan, but yeah, King DDD broke the star rod, and he gave the pieces to his buddies who are now hiding in Dreamland. Some of those bosses that Gary's going to walk us through how to bring down. So to bring back the lost dreams, Kirby sought the star rod. That's one heck of an intro, covering the controls, the mechanics, the story. Let's run our own intro and get into this Kirby's Adventure walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, let's start a brand new game here. Kirby 1. There are 7 different worlds, or levels I suppose they're called. We start off in Vegetable Valley here in Kirby's Adventure. As we take a look now at the Briggs notes for this Kirby's Adventure walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. Number 1, follow this guide to find all of the secret areas. We're going to show you how to 100% complete this game, which unlocks Extra Mode, which is just basically a harder mode of playing through the game. You also have access to the bonus games on demand once you get that 100% rating. Number 2, prioritize the best abilities. Again, I kind of mentioned some of those in the intro, but we'll be pointing those out as we get deeper into the game. Like we have the beam right now. You can pause at any point to see kind of a better guide as to how each of these specific moves work, little tips and tricks for each one. And lastly, use Gary's boss beaters. He has tips on taking down every single boss in this game, and a lot of times tips on the best abilities to use on each one. And we have the first little hidden secret area right here, where we can grab a very useful ability early on. Just fly down here, be careful not to fall, otherwise you'll die. And then very quickly suck in this enemy, press down to get its ability. And you have the UFO, which has 4 different attacks depending on how long you hold down that B button. But it's just a lot faster way to get around, avoid damage, do more damage. Hold down that B button for the most powerful star shot right there. It goes through enemies, and then we lost it just like that as soon as we take damage. We can track down that same star though and suck it back up and swallow it in order to get our special ability back before it leaves the screen. Just gotta be careful in those instances you don't end up taking more damage in order to get that ability back than is warranted. But see right there with the sort of trampoline, you just gotta hit that A at just the right time, hold it down to get the most lift out of that jump. We'll keep working on that, but we have our first mini game right here. This is a crane game called Crane Fever. If you grew up in any time in the last 30 years, I'd say, you'll probably recognize a crane game. The idea here is to simply grab the prize, in this case, one of the pink Kirbys. I like to go for the bigger one as it's worth more, and just try to line it up as best you can, hit that A button. But it's pretty much random as to whether or not it's gonna shake loose from that crane after you get the right alignment on that. But each one of these is worth it. You can see we'll try to go 2 for 2 here. I think that was a gimme that they gave us the first one. We probably won't get this one. A lot of times they shake loose, yeah. Just like a real crane game. Sometimes rigged, sometimes not. You have to have that eye in a real crane game, but the big ones worth 2 extra lives, the small ones a single extra life, so you can get up to 4 extra lives if you go 2 for 2 in that event right there. But a lot of things you can inhale in Kirby are just to use as a projectile, certainly against bosses in particular. Not all enemies have abilities which you can take on as well. Some of them do. Got the cutter right here. Jump on the warp star. This will take us to the next area here. If you're familiar with the Kirby series, you'll certainly recognize the warp stars right there. And we have our first boss, albeit a mini boss, Scary. It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, there are a lot of bosses to cover here in Kirby's Adventure. Bosses and mini bosses. This is the latter. Poppy Bros Sr. Basically just want to suck in the bomb, inhale, fire it back at him. When he launches at you hard, just slide back to the left. He'll just repeat this process, just sucking those bombs, fire him back. You'll take him down.
Good look, Gary. A lot of times when you take down a boss, you can get a special ability. It's a bit more rare. In this case, we get the crash ability. Use it to destroy all enemies on the screen. It can be very effective against certain bosses when you do get the opportunity, but let's go to Blaze now for an overview of the items of Kirby's Adventure.
Alright, there are a lot of special abilities and skills which Kirby can acquire. The professor will talk about them. There are too many to cover, but when it comes to basic items, there are only a few here in Kirby's Adventure. First, we have the tomato, the Maxim tomato. Gives you all of your health back. Next, we have the water bottle, just refills 2 of your health units. We have invincibility. If you can find this lollipop, it lasts for a short amount of time. Just plow through the stage. We have the 1-up for the extra life. And finally, the star. When you grab one of these, it takes you to the next area or level in Kirby's Adventure.
Good call, Blaze. And basically the idea is just to get to the farthest or deepest, lowest point of that platform going down and just press. I like to hold that A button to try to get the most lift right there to get as high up as possible. Every now and then you'll get to the top part and grab yourself an extra life, but not an easy thing to do on demand every single time. Love the sword though, I have to say. Like the description, Kirby is especially brave when he holds the sword. Something to that extent, like he's a big old coward the rest of the time, but very useful against taking down a number of enemies, bosses in particular. We have the fireball ability, not to be confused with the fire ability. This is nice for giving you a little temporary invincibility for just plowing through levels a little bit faster, not worrying about taking any damage when you've got that activated. See, they don't last very long underwater, so plus you can't inhale down here. You're just using that little spout move to do some very minor damage to some weak baddies under the the water. As you can see, we have the basic fire move right here, nothing special. Don't mind losing that, unless it's like a specific instance where we need to melt some ice or something. Spark is kind of the same deal. Nothing to write home about. Very limited reach, which we have on the Spark. Suck in that Maxim tomato and move on to the next area here. Let's see if we can't go all the way. Almost. If we got like another foot out of that, we could have grabbed on just automatically, and sometimes he'll pull himself up to get to that top tier. But yeah, it's tough to land. Museums, you just grab an ability. Sometimes there's two, sometimes you're just one. A lot of times these help you out to get prepared for the next boss. Again, the sword, one of my favorites. I just like Kirby having an instrument of death at hand right there. Stabbing the baddies. You have to be careful. The controls are very solid in this game, but yeah, it's easy to just kind of, with momentum, plow into an enemy you didn't mean to and lose your ability. But we have another mini-boss. Gary?
Boss right here, Frosty. Suck in his ice blocks, fire him back at him. If you have the sword, he's a very quick out. Just keep chopping at him. He'll go down very quickly.
That's why I love the sword. You get a lot of hits in very quickly, too, and they don't have a really large temporary invincibility buffer with a lot of these enemies, so you don't have to be too precious with a lot of the moves in this game, especially early on. Beam is nice because it gives you that kind of 180 degrees almost of reach above to below you. So if there's enemies in your immediate vicinity just kind of surrounding you, at least above, below, and in front of you, very handy move to have on demand right there. Kind of curious, actually, class. Those of you who are familiar with Kirby's Adventure here, what's some of your favorite moves, special abilities in this game? And there's the rod, which Blaze mentioned, gives us that temporary invincibility, so let's just plow it. Got the one up there, just because I love that sound effect. Not anticipating needing a lot of these extra lives throughout the course of this game. Not saying we're going to get that no-death run, because this is a very long game. Coming in at about 2 hours, even if you're plowing through it. There we go. Our first top tier right here. So we get the extra life for making it all the way up. A little UFO, and we get a couple of our Kirby twins, clones, dancing alongside of us in a very well choreographed sequence, I have to say. But anyway, time for our first proper end-of-level boss right here. Let's throw it to Gary. Get some tips.
Whispy Woods, just have that sword handy. Chop him down. It's very satisfying. Just get right up on him. Whatever ability you have is very effective. Otherwise, you can just go over, suck in those apples, and fire him back. But I just really like chopping him down, taking it to him with the sword.
As do I, thanks, Gary. Yeah, go all lumberjack on him. I do remember that boss. My brother had the Game Boy, the original Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy, which, actually, speaking of which, as we begin Ice Cream Land here, Ice Cream Island, I should say, all food themed, you'll notice, for the most part. But yeah, speaking of Kirby's Dream Land, let's bring in Fluff for our first Fluff fact about Kirby's Adventure. Fluff?
The character and series of Kirby was created by Masahiro Sakurai when he was working at HAL Laboratories at only 19 years old, with the first title in the Kirby series, Kirby's Dream Land, for the Game Boy. Eventually selling over 5 million copies, Kirby's Dream Land was the best-selling game in the series until 2022's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Nintendo initially wanted Sakurai to simply port the game to the NES, but Sakurai decided on designing a brand new game. His reasoning for doing so was that Kirby's Dream Land was designed more for beginners, but he believed that the NES player base was a more experienced lot, so he sought to design a more challenging game.
That's interesting. I wonder if there was some sort of industry data regarding the skill level of players, or, you know, maybe, by the way, I love the tornado move, one of my favorites. Now that I mention it, forgot about that one, but yeah, it's pretty fantastic just for flying through the majority of the stage without worrying about getting hit or anything like that. But yeah, you'll see how effective this is as we move forward. But yeah, I guess the thought process was that people who take their games on the go, or more casual gamers playing on their commute or something like that. Not sure how that works, but interesting fact. So we have this. This is a fun game. Just hold B to suck in everything that's not a bomb. So just kind of alternate holding it down and not. It's a very tight window, actually. It works pretty well. So you don't have to worry about like a big come down or cool down or anything like that between closing your mouth when those bombs are coming towards you. Just let up at the last second and you'll avoid those. But the idea is to get every single one of those eggs to complete that mini game. Some fun mini games, I have to say, in this. I like the quick draw one, which we'll come to eventually. But yeah, the tornadoes just basically keeps you invincible for 90% of the time while you're using it. The only dangerous part is when you're coming off of it there at the end, but certainly useful for a lot of the bosses in this game. We're warping ahead here to the deserts of Ice Cream Island. I suppose work in some desert theme. Knock out 2 biomes with 1 stone. You can grab a sword there, other things like that. But Gary?
Grand Wheelie. You want to fly or jump over him when he charges at you. Inhale those wheels, fire back at him. Repeat this process, you'll take him down.
Yeah, all strategies go out the window when you have Tornado. You don't have to... It's just the turn the brain off and spin type move. That's how I classify it. I like to hold on to this one as long as Kirby possible. You just fly through large sections of the game. There we go. Get another one up? Nope. Yeah, it's not, it's really just a feel thing. We do get the points bonus every time, but, you know, not quite the same as getting all the way up there. Have another crane game unlocked for us. I'm gonna start to skip those, as you know we've shown that, and they get a little samey, especially when you're just standing to earn the occasional one-up from it. It's mostly luck-based, though. We're going to begrudgingly give up our tornado right here to get the sword. Stab just once from the back there to keep this block intact. Use it to jump and stab that bomb to get to the UFO that's hidden here. Grab the Maxim tomato if you need it. And it's just a bit more easy to get around this area when we have the full speed of the UFO, especially underwater. Probably the rarest of all the items in this game, or the special abilities, is the UFO. You can probably count on one hand, 2 at the most, as the number of times you can access this in the game, and most of the times it's hidden away. Only a couple times when you can actually, you're gifted it in certain situations. Hold on to it as long as possible. You can take it into the next mini-boss, if we can hold on to it here. There's that little beam, that's kind of the mid-shot right there. There we go. Alright, who we got this time, Gary?
Alright, the Meta Knight minions. You want to suck up 1 minion, spit it out another one, just repeat this process. This is a very satisfying and super easy mini-boss battle, which you'll come across many times in this game. Not too difficult.
Yeah, these guys are fun to beat up on. Just warm bodies. Suck them up, launch them at their allies, and yeah. You can hold down to get the special star, the top tier one, which goes through most obstacles, but here we go. This should go through his little mace right there, flailing mace. And there we go. Unfortunately, they take away our UFO at the end of most levels, so you can't... The one ability, or one of the very few abilities, which you can't carry into the next area, unfortunately, but... Nonetheless, I guess it would make getting to the top tier a little too easy if you could just float up there in your UFO. I can accept that. So I'm going to skip the crane game right there and go up to the museum. And I'm going to grab the laser right here. Looks very similar to the one which we had in the UFO, but the cool thing about the laser is it can bounce off of walls. We can use this to our advantage in certain situations, certainly later on in the game. This looks very much like the final stages of Mario 2, by the way, the cloud kind of biome areas. You can sort of see a lot of the overlap, the influences in some of these. Of course, HAL Laboratories and, or Laboratory, singular, and Nintendo were always very close. Fluff's talked about that in the past. Actually, we'll bring in Fluff to talk a bit more about that in just a second, but we have another boss. I recommend sucking in the stone enemy here, or the enemy to get the stone ability, and Gary?
Boss, Mr. Tick-Tock. Another boss we'll be seeing quite a bit of. You want to drop on the boss at this point with the stone when you got it. Just stay still until he moves away from you. Then you can break out of the stone. Repeat this process. Otherwise, just suck in the projectiles he launches out. Fire him back at him. He's not too difficult, not the fastest of bosses. You'll take him down.
Yeah, that invincibility, the play dead feature of the stone is nice. I'm going to suck in Mr. Tick-Tock and get the mic ability. This is a 3-shot, or 3-use ability to basically kill all the enemies on the screen. We can use this against certain bosses. First time you use that megaphone, then it's just the microphone, and then the final time it's just basically the rock and roll move. But here's the laser in action, as I was saying. Bounces off of these kind of 45-degree angle slopes right there. So when you have that ability, be on the lookout for those. Sometimes you can access other areas, as in the case of that 1-up, to using that laser ability. So same idea here. Cut through these couple guys, you could shoot up there, but all that to grab just a couple extra HP. If you need it, go ahead and grab that. One of the enemies very reminiscent of Super Mario 2 as well. American version of the Doki Doki Panic, which we did a class on here on Video Games 101, by the way. There we go. Good launch. Up to 13 lives. And we have a sort of mini-game which we're unlocking here, the arena, in which you can take on a mini-boss to get their ability. A lot of times, the ability you can get from that mini-boss is very useful in the next area of the game, the next stage. Sometimes for accessing an area you wouldn't otherwise be able to access because that ability is not in the level. Usually a rehash, in this case Mr. Frosty. We're just going to laser him to death with our ability. We can get his freeze ability right there. But anyway, as we go into the next stage, let's bring in Fluff for another Fluff fact about Kirby's Adventure. Fluff?
Kirby series creator Masahiro Sakurai directed or was involved in a number of games for HAL in the years following Kirby's Adventure, including Kirby Superstar, Super Smash Bros., and Super Smash Bros. Melee. Sakurai left HAL in 2003, citing frustration with the business of sequelization. He formed Sora Limited with his wife Machiko, who also worked at HAL, and has done freelance design work in the years since. Notable projects he's worked on since leaving HAL include Kid Icarus Uprising, which was the first game in the Kid Icarus series in 20 years at the time. By the way, we did a recent class on the original Kid Icarus, link in the description. And Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, the latter of which is the best-selling fighting game of all time.
Nice. Yeah, the last Nintendo system which I had actually a console of myself was the Nintendo 64, when my Nintendo allegiance was at an all-time high in the mid to late 90s. So I was a big fan of Super Smash Bros. In particular. Didn't play a lot of the ones post that, but that was a fantastic game. And I can certainly understand why games of that series would be amongst the best or best-selling fighting games of all time. More of an accessible, everybody can get into it type of fighting game, in particular when it comes to those. And all the different memorable characters, obviously, from the Nintendo Galaxy featured in those games. Got some deep cuts, too. I mean, Ness from Earthbound, the Ice Climbers. I mean, come on, it's all over the place. Pretty cool. Anyway, this is kind of slow going depending on the ability that you have right here. Very close to losing our first life right here. Get 2 HP back right there. This will keep us afloat for a bit longer. Can't go all the way to the left there. Have to be careful with those bombs when they go off. If you're too close in proximity, they will still hit you. You can get a Maxim tomato if you're very careful in how you inhale them. Every now and then you'll see one of those guys riding a Maxim tomato. Most of the time it's just an apple, but every now and then, if you're careful, you can get all your HP back from one of those. See, that one didn't feel that good to me, and yet we get the one up, so you never know. So we've unlocked the boss of this level right here. Before we take him on, if you're kind of low on health, like I am right here, you can go back to this mini-boss. Depending on who it is and the ability that you have, if it's an easy out, then I recommend taking him on to grab that Maxim tomato that you get for winning. Makes taking on the next stage, or boss in this case, a lot easier. And speaking of the next boss, Gary?
Boss
Alright, Paint Roller. You can use whatever abilities you have to attack, get up close like we show, or just get a new one as he conjures in different enemies who have a number of different abilities which you can suck in. You especially want to look out for the bomb and swallow that to take on the crash ability, which does a lot of damage. That'll take it down fast. When he's moving around, when he's coming to the bottom, especially when to hover below a platform when he's moving. This will keep you safe. Even if he comes to the side which you're coming on, just repeat the process, get those hits in, take him down.
Good look. Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, whenever you can get that crash ability against the boss. Extremely effective. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you.